Perfect. Welcome to August's Town Hall. We have some great updates to share with you today. We're excited that you're going to join us. So first up, I'm going to bring Dom. So he has been working on the V6 release. And let's see. Let's bring you up, Dom. I think I have to give you access for your, does that work? So Dom has been working on the V6 guide where we incorporated Vite, and you get some major performance gains. You can't share video or audio. Let's see. I'm trying to give you access. Sorry, just real quick. Let's see here. You know, this is the fun part about streaming things live. Dom, I'm looking to see if I can give you access. Let's see, I can make you a co-host, but I'm looking.
That seems to have done the trick.
Perfect. That was entertaining. I should have told some jokes in the meantime. I have some good ones lined up. Add a little bit of excitement. So Dom's been working on the V6 release, like I mentioned, and this features Vite. So Dom, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. So V6 was a big release for us. I want to say we had the RC out for about a month, which is one of our longer RC periods, and got a lot of feedback, iterated a whole bunch. And obviously, as Amy said, the main highlight is Vite, which is a new bundler and one of, like, if not the most modern build tool, definitely one of them. It brings, like, you're using ESM in the browser, taking advantage of kind of like where JavaScript is today and just everything, and it comes together really nicely. And one of the main concerns we see, especially as Redwood scales, is just some of it is performance. Like, it gets slow, and we want Redwood to keep going. And Redwood is built to be used for, just you can use it for the weekend hackathon or just side project, but it's really meant to be used indefinitely for, like, your project to work with teams. And Vite really brings that scalability to the framework in a different way that Webpack just couldn't without relying on, like, modern features. So we're really excited about that. And announcement post shows, like, a difference. Chris Colson, he has a super old Redwood project, Team Stream, that's awesome. He's been developing over several major releases. So you can see the difference, like, in a real project here. Vite isn't there. There's a couple other things here too. So Vite replaces Webpack, and in the upgrade guide, we've deprecated Webpack, but it's still there. And we're not going to remove it until we see strong adoption metrics for Vite. So if you're not quite ready to make that change yet, like, you can still upgrade to V6. You don't have to put that off just because Vite's there. But definitely want to know, like, why, if you need to stick on Webpack or if you prefer it for some reason, let us know why, because we do want to make that switch easier. And Vite has, like, all the custom. Webpack is very customizable, but Vite is just as well. There's a config. So if you are really diving into Webpack config, there's a very good chance you could do something similar, if not the exact same thing, within Vite's, like, config that it has set up. So other things here, there's a couple. Prisma and Storybook both released major versions. For Storybook, it was their first one, and I want to say, like, at least a year or two. So huge one for them. And a lot of the, I think, fixes for them and changes were internal, but, like, things like the Vite builder were the first class for them. So one note here that I'll mention is that Storybook still uses the Webpack builder. We're going to ship support for the Vite builder during this V6 release cycle. It was a bit non-trivial to get the config to work in time, and we just reduced scope. But if you have it set up, like, you won't notice it's all under the hood that Storybook will use the Webpack builder instead of the Vite builder. And if that all doesn't make sense, I apologize. But It basically means like if you configure something in Vite, it will not apply in Storybook. So we're going to get that shipped. So for you using Storybook out there, like I'd still encourage you to try it. Like we tested it and made sure like with the default configs that everything works across both. So if it doesn't work for you, just let me know. But know that we're going to be shipping support, like first class support for Vite and Storybook as well. So you can use one build tool across all the tools here. Prisma V5 is the other one, and that brought, I think Prisma sold this one on speed. Like it's very fast, especially in serverless environments due to a new like JSON protocol. I won't pretend I'm like intimate with all the details there, but I don't believe there were like many breaking changes in that one. A couple, not niche APIs, but some of the more advanced ones, it seemed like got some differences between array syntax and objects. So have a look there if you're using Prisma like extensively. And lastly, the suspense router here is a big one for us, especially looking towards the future. We plan on shipping streaming and SSR, and we're working on React Server components. So having a suspense enabled router is like pretty much table stakes, or like if not the very first step to get like that kind of like blocking happening at the page level. So that was all under the hood. Like no, there was like one breaking change we found thanks to Asher. I don't know if she's here, but if you're doing something like if you're not using the set wrap prop to render like a provider across routes, that's just the only change you'll have to make is putting it in a set. Other than that, like I think a few things came up just with more use, but we're addressing them in turn as we always do. Release notes are super long, so don't feel bad about not reading all these. It's just if you really wanted to know everything that went into the release, it's there for you. But we've released a couple patches since, and we'll keep doing that as we did in the V5 release cycle. I think we had about like 30 releases in V5. So we're already at 3 here, and we'll keep it going. And just as things come up, yeah, get them fixed and turned around. Last thing I'll highlight is logging is one of the things we've gotten like the most feedback on, that it's just like a crazy amount of logs. And this is just when you start Redwood Dev, like you haven't done anything, you know, you haven't made a GraphQL request. You pretty much just started the dev server and you get like a couple pages. So now when you start, you should just get something nice and concise. So we're always working on improving this. And we've made some changes here to give like a little less information up front that we think everyone seems to have wanted. But let us know if like there's something there that you wish you could see. You can still obviously configure the log level and log more or less, but the defaults will be to keep it concise. And yeah, is that I can dig into some more things, Amy, but definitely want to be conscious of time.
Sure. This looks great. I'm super excited about all the updates that have been made and all the performance gains. I think that's probably the biggest highlight for this particular release.
Definitely it'll keep trending, I think, in that direction. So yeah, thanks for everyone who's trying it out. And again, if you need help upgrading, like do let us know. We want it to be as easy as it can be. We have code mods for like almost all the Vite steps. So just let us know like what the sticking points are, and we'll adjust them.
Awesome. So next up, I'm going to share some of the stuff that I have been working on, which is exciting for me, at least. One of the things that we have is we've created a Git pod starter so that, and this will be on the official RedwoodJS GitHub org. But if you don't want to install Redwood locally, you can do all that with Gitpod. So it's as easy as just clicking on the Open in Gitpod button. And what this does is it will launch a new workspace. And so I can just click continue. And we had someone from Gitpod featured on our partner pitches this past week. So you should definitely check that out. That will be on our YouTube playlist. But Sean goes through and talks about a lot of the features that Gitpod offers out of the box and how you can do everything, including working with a database. So I worked with Dom last week to integrate this with all the Vite updates. So as soon as you launch it, if you checked out the repo, you can see there were only a few files listed. And the nice thing is, as soon as you open up this particular project on Gitpod, it will run the Create Redwood app. And so if I hit yes, what that does is you can see it now populated all of the files here on the left. It also installs a few plugins. So this will feel like you're working within VS Code, except you're within the browser, which is really nice. It does take a minute to run all the yarn install commands, but once that is all up and running, you can access GraphQL, you can access Prisma Studio, you can do all the things that you would be able to do on your local machine, except you can now do it within the browser. So this is perfect if you're collaborating with someone on your particular Redwood project, or you're out and about and need to quickly be able to update everything. So you can see that that's all running. One thing I will point out that's pretty cool. So within this IDE, you'll see that now a service is available on port 8910. So if I open the preview, I think this will open right here within the sidebar, or you can have it say open in browser and it'll open in a new tab. So you can see that there is Redwood. I can also click on this ports tab and you can see here's 5432 is where Postgres is running. 8910 is for the front end. 8911 is where the API is running. And so if I click on this little globe icon, it will also open that up in a new tab. If I open this guy up, you can see that here is our API layer. And then if I type /GraphQL, you can see that there's our Redwood GraphQL playground. So again, pretty cool that this is all within the browser. And so we encourage you to check that out as well. And again, that's running v6 with Vite. So super exciting stuff. Next up, I'm going to bring Toby. So Toby is another member of the core team, and he has been working hard on React server components. So we're really excited to share with you some of the progress and the updates that we've made in terms of bringing React server components into the RedwoodJS framework. So Toby, let's see if I can bring you on and make you a co-host. Go, Toby. I see your screen.
And now I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Camera as well.
Awesome. Perfect.
Oh, wrong camera anyway. All right, doesn't matter. All right, so yeah, React server components in Redwood. This is going to be a bit of a more technical walkthrough than the previous two things that we presented. So do let us know if you enjoy this kind of technical stuff, or if you want to keep it on a higher level going forward. So I wanted to talk about how we build for React server components. So as we've mentioned already, we switched to Vite. So Vite is what we're using for all of our React server component support. And also, as we mentioned, the suspense router is going to play a big role in our React server component implementation. But as I said before, we can even run it, you need to build it. And that's where we use Vite. For those of you who haven't looked at server components a lot, I'm going to start with a bit of a history lesson. Starting, I guess, 5 years or so ago, where we all built SPAs. And first we had a single JS file. So you went to a web page and all you got served back in the browser was a blank HTML page with a JavaScript tag that would download a big JavaScript bundle, a single big JavaScript file. That in turn would download React and all your components, all your pages. We quickly figured out that it was unnecessary to download exactly everything. Like you only need to download the first page really to get started. So for step 1.2 here, we realized we could split our JavaScript file up into smaller files and lazy load them as we needed. But we still only had a blank HTML page to stare at while the browser was downloading all the JavaScript files. So a couple of years ago, SSR, different kind of pre-render techniques like SSR and SSG got really popular. And what that does is that it renders your whole page on the server first, sends it over to the browser. So you get the static version of your page to look at while the browser is downloading the JavaScript files. And then everything, when the browser has the JavaScript files, everything is rendered on the browser again, like on the client side in the browser again, and the whole page is updated. And now you can start using the page. So you have a split second or a second there in the beginning where you have a page to look at, but you can't use it. And you have to do the render. The whole page is rendered both on the server and then again the whole thing on the client in the browser. So the next logical step here is to render everything on the server, because you have to do that so you can serve like you have something to look at as soon as possible. But then in the browser, there's no need to re-render everything again. We can, with React Server components, we can send just the things that needs to be interactive. So only the things that user can change will need to be re-rendered in the browser. So they call it React Server components, but really what's special and important here is actually the client components. So going into what the client component looks like, I have an example here as a counter. And what sets it apart is that it has this use client string at the very top of the file. And that this tells Vite or whatever bundler you're using that this is a special client component that needs to treat in a special way. And also React needs to know that this is a component that it can render on the server, but it then needs to also have the JavaScript code for it so that it can make it interactive on the client later. So getting into the technical part of making this all build with Vite, we have a first step where, okay, so backing up again, Vite, if you had, and bundlers in general, if you don't know, what they do is you tell them where to start, like what file is the main entry point for your application. And then it looks in that file and searches for all the import statements or the require statements and builds a graph of all the JavaScript files, all the pages, components, everything that you use in your app, builds a big graph of that. And for the browser, it then compiles one, or like in the beginning again, just one single big JavaScript file. But then now we instead build several smaller chunks of JavaScript files based on this graph. And normally, Vite can do that all in just one pass. But to make Server components work, we need to have Vite actually process your entire application 3 times. The very first time it goes through that entire graph is to just find all these client components. And so in this example app that I have here, I actually have 2 client components. I have counter, that's the one that you see up top, and then I have another one just called counter2. It's the same thing, just a separate component. So for this first step, it will find those 2 files and build a map. So you give each file or each component will get an ID. React Server component 0, that's my counter, and React Server component 1 is counter2. When that's done, we can continue to step 2, which is the standard, pretty much standard Vite client build. So this is what Vite will do if you just want to build a single page application. One thing that is a bit special about this step that we have added is a special Vite plugin that will inject a Webpack shim into your source files. And the reason for this is that we are using, or the React team has created a Webpack implementation for React Server components, but we are using Vite, so we needed to have some code to translate between the Webpack specific stuff that the React team has created to work with our Vite bundler. So that's what this is. And then specifically, when Webpack asks for a file, we just tell Vite to import it. So this is a standard ES module import statement. To get a better understanding of what's actually going on and what Vite is actually doing, you can ask it to produce a manifest or a build manifest. So this is part of what the build manifest looks like for the client build. And here you can again see my counter client component and my counter 2 client component. And when Vite builds them, they're not called TSX counter.tsx anymore, because Vite will minify it and make it JavaScript instead of TypeScript. So the file will actually be called React Server Component 0 and then a hash of that file. And for counter 2, you have the same thing, but React Server Component 1 instead. So that was the second time we asked Vite to build our application. The third and final time we ask it to build, we tell it to build for a rendering on the server instead. So like a SSR build. And again, to get a bit of a better insight, I asked it to generate a build manifest. And you can see that I put these steps next to each other because so you can see that they are actually very similar. The one important difference here is that the generated files, they are just called React Server Component 0 and React Server Component 1. They don't have the hash. And that's a problem, because when we ask Vite to, or when we then render this page on the server, it will use these file names. But when we then send it over to the client and it wants to re-render or fetch just those client components, it can't use these file names because they're not what they are called on the client. On the client, they have this hash added to the file names as well. So after all the build steps are done, what we have to do is create this map between the file name on this server and what they are called when downloaded by the browser. So those are the steps that we do right now. If we go back up here again and look at these three things, what we did here for step 2 was to build on the server, send the whole build thing to the client, and then again on the client, rebuild everything, download our JavaScript, and make everything interactive. So the one thing that I haven't done yet for React Server Components is that initial build step where we build on the server. So to have an index file with everything in it, like the whole page, your whole application should be rendered inside the index file, the SSR step. That's still left to do for React Server Components. So if that's where I need your help, like I will get to it, but if anyone wants to jump in and help out, that would be awesome. So just talk to me and I will point you in the right direction for how to implement this initial server-side build. So right now, React Server Components, they work, but you get that same 5 years ago SPA experience where you just have a blank page to look at while everything is downloaded. So obviously we want to get rid of that and instead do what is now like common regular pre-render step also for React Server Components. Yeah, I think I will actually stop there. So this is how we have done our setup for building React Server Components with Vite. And we have to do this because Vite doesn't yet have built-in support for server components. Like ideally, we could just have Vite go through everything once, but now we have to do it 3 times instead to get all the parts in place for the final application to work. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Awesome. Thanks, Toby. I know you guys
Thanks.
have put in a lot of work to make all of that happen, and just trying to like wade through documentation and source code and all the things. So really appreciate everything that you've done.
Yeah, there is really nothing documented on this, especially not for Vite, because the React team decided to, or I guess the React team together with the next JS team decided to do everything with Webpack. So yeah, all we have to go on pretty much are other community efforts to get React Server Components working with Vite and also the Webpack implementation.
Awesome. What a fun challenge.
It is fun.
Perfect. Excellent. Well, next I'm going to bring Tom on. We're going to talk a little bit about the conference that we're hosting at the end of September. We're very excited about that. It's going to be in Grants Pass, Oregon. Awesome. Welcome, Tom.
Hello. All right, I'm going to share a screen of the conference website here while I talk about it. All right, so hopefully you've heard about RedwoodJS Conf already. We decided to organize and throw our first official conference around RedwoodJS, but it's more than that, really. We intend it to be for web builders, people building web apps that are using React. So the speaker list for this conference is much broader than just Redwood specific things. We focus on all of the elements that make a RedwoodJS app, like Prisma, GraphQL, Apollo. We have workshops. We have speakers that are more entrepreneurial in nature. So things around building companies, not just writing the code. So you can see that this conference is in Oregon, as Amy said. It's September 26th through 29th. So the 26th is the day of the workshops. The 27th and 28th are the days of the talks. And then the 29th is an optional fun day where we're going to go and do some fun things out in the woods together. And there's redwoods up there. So if you haven't seen a redwood yet, could be your chance. So the first day, the workshop day, is also optional. So if you only wanted to come for those two middle days, 27th and 28th, that is the sort of the core of the conference. So you can see, I want to talk about some of the speakers here. So we've got a really great speaker list we're put together here. It's growing, so we don't have everyone listed on here yet, but amazing people. Orda, Diana from GitHub is going to talk about design. Amy, of course, our very own Amy Dutton will be contributing. We've got amazing people. Brian Douglas is going to be there from OpenSauce. It's going to be a great time. Janet's going to talk about, she's a executive coach. So she's going to talk about like how you build teams and run a company. If you're interested in building something, at Redwood, we really love when people use Redwood to build actual companies, startups. So if you're interested in that, there's going to be some sprinkling of entrepreneurship on top of here to make it interesting and go broader than just a like purely technical conference. Michael Montelle has built a large Redwood app. He's with Fractal. He's one of the Fractal companies, building a web app that helps used car dealers manage their inventory. So kind of a niche market, but he's gone really deep into Redwood and has an extensive amount of knowledge. He's going to talk about, I think, scaling out their offering there. Danny from the core team. We're also going to have a workshop and a talk on AI, so using LLMs with your applications. So Nick from Fixie.ai is going to talk about their software project, which is called AI.jsx, which is React components that will allow you to incorporate and use LLMs that you can fine tune inside your React applications, inside your Redwood applications, super easily. And of course, we're all interested in how we can apply AI to the kinds of problems that we're solving. So we think that that is extremely timely and relevant for everyone. So definitely, if you're interested, come to the website, redwoodjsconf.com. You'll see the list of all the workshops here. Another interesting thing that we're doing is having a founders workshop on the first day. So David Price and I, and some of the other core team members, I believe, are going to get together for a bunch of hours with some people that want to sign up for this workshop and really work with you one-on-one, talk through any of the problems that you're having, anything you want to know about RedwoodJS, anything you want to know about building companies, raising money, etc. It's really for you to decide how you want to leverage us, but it's going to be a really great couple of hours that we spend together. So you can sign up for the Founders Workshop. And then there's several technical workshops. So we have Gerald from Apollo coming to talk about how to use Apollo better. And if you're using Redwood right now, then you're using GraphQL to do your data fetching, probably. And getting that right can be a challenge to do, especially once you start to scale, thinking about issues of security and performance. So Gerald will be there for an advanced workshop around Apollo. And then from Prisma, we have Sabine, who's going to come talk about how to better use Prisma. These are some of the more complex areas of Redwood, and you want to be well positioned to use them. Prisma, especially, once you know the tricks of Prisma, once you really get into using it and knowing how to do things, it becomes much, much easier to do them properly. So this is going to be a really amazing workshop that Prisma is putting on. And then we've got all the days of the talks, second and third day. And then on that fourth day, there's some fun activities that we're going to do. And it's going to be amazing because Oregon in September, late September, is going to be glorious, like the greatest weather. It's going to be amazing weather, trees and wildlife, etc. It's going to be sweet. So we hope that you stay for that fourth day. And we're just so excited to have everyone together, see all the core team together, right? We don't normally see the core team together in person. We normally meet remotely. So it's going to be a chance for us to really get together, talk about Redwood, talk about the future of Redwood, and really dig into, with you all, especially as well, React Server components, which Toby talked about. Obviously, this is the future of Redwood for us. And so I will be giving the keynote and we'll talk about exactly where we are with React Server components, what they're going to look like. We should have a lot figured out by then and have some canaries, some early version, experimental versions. I mean, we already have experimental versions that have rudimentary React Server component support, thanks to Toby and Danny's work on the router and React Server components and suspense, etc. So by the end of September, we should have some really compelling stuff. We should be getting pretty close to having some nicely usable React Server components technology. So we'll be talking a lot about that. It's going to be a fairly intimate affair, so this thing's going to sell out. So we really encourage you to get your tickets if you think you're going to come. Like, get your tickets early. Make sure you get your spot. And logistically, it's probably an additional flight to get into Grants Pass from wherever you're coming from. You'll fly into, somewhere, Denver, San Francisco, something like that, and then you'll take a short hop to Grants Pass, and then from there, I think there's going to be shuttles. Amy, is that we'll have some kind of transportation that
That's
you
right.
can
So you'll
use?
that's right. So you'll fly into Medford as the official airport code. I think it's like MDR, and then we'll have a shuttle available to get you to Grants Pass. So it's just a quick 15-minute drive over to Grants Pass. Yeah. So if you click on the travel information, we have all of that there, as well as the sign up for the shuttle. So you don't even have to worry about driving from the airport. Yeah, there's the transfer information.
Yeah. So we have all the information on how to get there and where to stay. And the beautiful thing about Grants Pass, Oregon, is that the accommodations are less expensive than they are in giant cities like San Francisco. So you can enjoy a much cheaper stay while you're there. So that's the conference, and we're super excited about it, and we hope that you can join us.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm most excited about is we've intentionally kept the attendance small so that people can connect with other people and really focusing in on those relationships. And I know, Tom, I've heard you talk about the early days of RailsConf and how special that time was with that particular setup, because it was small and intimate and you were able to build long-lasting relationships. And so I'm looking forward to this conference because I really hope that that will provide the same type of venue and experience for the attendees.
Absolutely. Yeah. The early Ruby conferences were a few hundred people. They were held in kind of random, weird places. And it was so personal. You really made relationships there. I got to know people in the early Ruby days that I still know that have gone on now to create giant companies. And it was such a great and innovative time in Ruby. And I think we're in a similar place with React and how it's changing and growing. And I think Redwood is really well positioned to be a power player in the future of React. So if you want to get in on the ground floor and really make those relationships, talk to the people that are building those things, innovating in this space in React and full stack, then this is the place for you for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome. So you can go to RedwoodJSConf.com and purchase tickets now. There's also details there for purchasing workshop tickets and the founders workshop if you'd like to do that with your company. So we look forward to seeing you at the end of September. Okay, now's the fun part. I'm going to end the live broadcast. So if you joined us on YouTube, thank you. If you, in the future, if you want to join us on Zoom, we do breakout rooms with the core team. So you can register for that on Luma and find more information at redwoodjs.com for next month's town hall meeting. So thank you again for participating. Okay. Should I click the right button here?